Hi, and welcome to another edition of Wildcat Extra. I'm Ava Wallace, the Daily Northwestern sports editor, here with Putterman and Rohan Nadkarni. Today we're going to talk about the second hearing in what we expect to be a lengthy proceedings in the football players, led by Kain Colter, attempts to unionize. So what went on in court today, guys?
I guess it started, each side made an opening statement. Basically today was all about Kain Colter. He's the star witness, so to speak, for Kappa, which is the players' union that's attempting to be recognized formally as a labor union. He was questioned by the NU lawyers for hours. The Kappa lawyers for hours. He went through a pretty fairly rehearsed testimony with the Kappa lawyers, then questioned by NU, and then a little bit at the end by the hearing officer and the Kappa lawyers again. The biggest takeaway today was Kain. He had his full personality on. In the beginning, he was very charming, very funny. When it came time for the NU lawyers to question, he was very combative, very brash, very harsh. He left everything out on the table. I'm sure Alex will bring it up too, but he wasn't afraid to take shots at Northwestern. He wasn't afraid to, question the questioner, so to speak, and go right back at them.
It struck me that he was extremely well prepared, and his intentions were clear the whole time. When he was being questioned by the Kappa lawyer, he was charming, friendly, making jokes back and forth. Seemed like a guy you'd like to hang out with. And then the Northwestern lawyer comes up, and clearly the intent was just to do anything he could to throw off the lawyer, to make Northwestern's case difficult. He was being kind of petulant, if you will, intentionally so, I think. But it was just interesting to see that very obvious and conscious change in demeanor when the questions it came from somewhere different.
And just to kind of pick up on the feeling in the room, there are a lot of media there, a lot of people there. Alex and I talked to everyone. It seems like the general feel of the room was that Kain did a really good job on the stand. I think everyone we spoke to agreed that he was combative when he needed to, perhaps a little too harsh, but
Harsh on Northwestern?
Harsh with the questioner. His attitude was very just very combative. He wasn't receptive to the questioning at all. Obviously, he has a case to make, but he made sure to go at the questioner every time he had an opportunity to, and that led to quite a bit of contention, both of them going back at each other. But the general feeling in the room is that Kain did a pretty good job.
Right, and so the case that Kain was making is that the football players at Northwestern are employees of the university, often spending 40 to 50 hours a week in workouts in the locker room away from their homework, presumably. What did we learn about the football team today?
We'll have a story about this online, but what was fascinating about Kain's testimony, and I think arguably more interesting than any union stuff, was he really peeled back the curtain on the football team. We found out, we were given very detailed schedules, hour to hour, what these guys do every day. We found out what their summer workouts are like, their spring workouts are like, their winter workouts are like. There was nothing left for the imagination. He really told us, everything that goes on with the team.
Because just to put that in context, the intent was, and they went for several hours, it was just, this is the schedule of a Northwestern player in September, this is the schedule of a Northwestern player in January. Yeah, literally month by month, detailing what Northwestern's football team does every part of the year. And the point was, this is a huge commitment, it's a year-round commitment. They made the point that it doesn't fit with the academic schedule. Classes start mid to late September, while football starts early September and arguably never stops. Made the point that football players rarely get to see their families, only really for a few weeks a year during their time at Northwestern, if even that. The point being that football is just a huge, all-encompassing, activity.
Right, and I wanted to ask you, you mentioned something yesterday. Oftentimes when things like this happen, when it's, smaller organizations that are just being created, they go up in court against these huge institutions and kind of just get swatted away. Was that what it was like in court today, or how evenly matched are these two sides?
The key to that is that Kappa has the backing of United Steelworkers,
right,
which is an enormous labor union, one of the biggest in the United States, and they've offered and are paying for Kappa's lawyers, and Kappa's lawyers are no slouches. It's not a David versus Goliath thing. I mean, you could tell, we heard in our reporting, and also you could just tell listening to Kappa's main lawyer that he knew what he was doing, he was confident, the questions were pointed, it didn't feel at all like a mismatch.
Yeah, right off the bat, you could tell this was a very professional attorney. I mean, that might sound obvious, but, Kappa knows what they're doing. Again, if you read our story, this is something they've been in the makings for years. This is a situation they've been waiting for so long. They were going to handle it with the proper care. It was never going to be a situation where, they had bad lawyers or they were, mismatched. They're really doing this the right way. And perhaps it's our own biases, but I also felt that Kappa, with the opportunity to go first, really set the tone for the day with their witness using Kain. It'll be very interesting what happens when NU calls their own witnesses. But for right now, Kappa really laid the groundwork and set the tone for all the hearings.
Yeah, at least in the way they're speaking. For Kappa, this is no, let's test the waters and see what we can do, and maybe 5 years from now somebody can do something about this. They are really intending for this to be what begins it's the first domino in bringing down the NCAA system. Talking to Tim Waters, who's the national political director for United Steelworkers, part of this is just show, but he says, we're 100% sure we're going to win. We've got this. There's no doubt we're going to win. Very emphatic about that. And, some of that is, I'm sure, just for public consumption, but also from Kappa's side, the impression you get is they really think they have a good argument.
All right, any last main takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, just like Alex was saying, ultimately what this case comes down to is another thing Tim Waters told us at the hearing today is, we're going to hear a lot of testimony, but when the regional officer looks at the case and decides, what's going to happen, the regional director isn't at the hearing. He's going to look at the basic facts of the case, and he's going to basically decide, are these players getting paid? Are they being compensated for work? So it's going to come down to very basic questions when it's finally decided. We're not sure how much effect the hearing's going to have on that decision, but it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
I just want to throw out, a lot of people are talking about what Kappa's arguments are. We've covered a lot of Kappa's arguments. A big thing that could be something to look at going forward with Northwestern's argument, they're making the point that Kappa is only out to represent scholarship players. The walk-ons are currently not included in that. But the walk-ons go through all the same stuff that the players do. Of course, they do that without being compensated. So the walk-ons have a much less strong argument to be considered employees, which is why they're not included in Kappa. So Northwestern's point, one of Northwestern's many points, is how can you have this union without the walk-ons? The walk-ons, while not employees by any definition, are doing all the same things the scholarship players are, and that there's a discontinuity there.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too technical on that, but Northwestern's point was basically, if the board is to decide that walk-ons are to be included, we'll gladly include them. NU's point was...
That was Kappa's point.
That was Kappa's point, correct. NU's point was that if the walk-ons are to be included, then Kappa has failed to meet its goals of what they said they were as a union. Another interesting Northwestern point is, are these players employees or temporary employees?
Right.
They bring up the inherent, transitory nature of college athletics where players are cycled in. So that'll be another thing to watch.
Right. So a lot of Northwestern's arguments are very specific, logistical, don't necessarily attack the essence of the Kappa platform, but attack the structure of it moving forward.
All right. That's all we've got for the video, but make sure you check out the Daily Northwestern online. We've got an in-focus feature on how we got to this point with United Steelworkers, Kappa, and the Northwestern football players, as well as 2 stories, 1 a wrap-up of today's hearing, and 2 what we learned about the football team. Thanks for joining us.